pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our March meeting, which was at the Senior Center?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Tammy, announcements?
Announcements. Board of Commissioners meetings will take place on Monday, April 25th at the Radnor Township Building, and on Monday, May 9th, tentatively scheduled for the Radnor Fire Company. The next Parks and Recreation Board will take place on Thursday, May 12th at the Radnor Township Building. The annual orienteering event will take place on Saturday, April 16th at the Willows, Skunk Hollow. The MS Society Walk will take place on Sunday, April 17th at the Radnor Corporate Center. Spring break chess and soccer camps will take place the week of April 18th. The annual Arbor Day celebration will take place on Tuesday, April 26th at the Radnor Trail. People will meet at the Friends of Radnor Trails Park at 6 o'clock. The Katie Sampson Lacrosse Tournament will take place on Saturday, April 30th at Radnor High School. The Youth Trout Derby will take place on Saturday, April 30th and Sunday, May 1st at Sawmill Park. The summer registration kickoff will take place on Monday, May 2nd at the Radnor Township Building. The summer activities brochure will be posted online the week of April 25th. For a listing of all the department's activities, please visit our website at www.radnorparksandrecreation.com.
Okay. Do you want to roll right into activities report?
Sure. In March, the Parks and Recreation Department had many winter programs still up and running, including the Spring Youth Basketball League, five-star preschool sports, play ball, cardio core and more, World Cup Junior Soccer, preschool tennis, tennis at the Radnor Racquet Club for adults and teens, after-school science and chess at Ithan Elementary, and the spring chess tournament took place on Sunday, March 20th at Radnor Middle School, and it had over 75 participants. The Radnor Youth Basketball, Youth Hoops Clinic, Griffin Volleyball Program, and Youth Wrestling programs all came to a successful close in March. Our department would like to give everyone a special thanks at the local schools for accommodating the program and working very closely with our department. We would also like to give a special thank you to Bob Nicholas and the many, many coaches and volunteers and administrators who continue to play an enormous role with the program. For the winter 2011, it is estimated that over 1,450 participants took part in our department's 25 planned programs. 4 programs were canceled due to low enrollment. Gross revenue is estimated at nearly $150,000 and net revenue of approximately $60,000. We are currently taking registrations for upcoming spring programs, including tennis lessons, spring break camps, babysitters training, birding, and golf lessons. We also have 3 trips planned, one to New York City on Saturday, May 7th, a Phillies baseball game on Friday, July 22nd, and the U.S. Open Tennis Championships on Friday, September 2nd. There are over 30 programs and events scheduled for the spring season. A full lineup of summer programs and camps are planned, including the popular Radnor Day Camp, Summer Tot Lot, and Sports and More camps. We also have a wide variety of specialty camps and programs for all ages and interest levels. Summer registration will kick off on Monday, May 2nd in traditional fashion for our department, and residents will be able to access our complete summer activities brochure online the week of April 25th. Approximately 90 programs, camps, events, and trips have been scheduled for the summer. The Radnor Summer Concert Series is coming together successfully, and we are proud to feature 5 new entertainers in Radnor this summer. The series will take place over the course of 7 evenings and 7 locations within Radnor. We would like to thank TD Bank for their generous lead sponsorship for this event in the amount of $4,000. We would also like to thank Wegmans for their donation of a $200 gift card, which will be spent on water and supplies for each of the events, and Wawa for their in-kind donation of flavored drinks. Additional sponsorship proposals have been submitted in and around the Radnor community for funding and in-kind goods for the concert series, along with other events that we are currently awaiting the status. We have also received the contract and additional notification regarding our receipt of a programming grant in the amount of $5,000 from the Department of Community and Economic Development for application at the Radnor Activity Center. Our department has begun to review the details for programs and events that can potentially be offered in compliance with the grant in accordance to the corresponding timelines. Throughout the month of March, we have been working very diligently to produce our department segment for the new township newsletter that will be mailed to households and businesses in Radnor in late May. We have also been working with the IT department on many details relative to the newsletter, including the design, layout, and ad space details. We have also been preparing the design and layout for our Parks and Recreation summer brochure that will be posted online in late April, along with seasonal updates to the website. I met with the new Radnor Township Police Superintendent, Bill Colarulo, to give him an overview of our department operations and staff composition. We also discussed the procedures for background checks, general communication and notification processes, police presence at events and programs, and interdepartmental synergies. Our department looks forward to working together with Bill on many upcoming projects. In addition to programming, usage at Radnor Activity Center is also being coordinated. 8 rentals took place in the month of March for activities such as basketball and birthday parties. 2 of them were for went over a course of a series of several days. We continue to coordinate and schedule the facility for various public and private groups within the community, such as Radnor Middle School and our department's spring and summer recreational usage. Gross income generated from rentals and birthday parties is close to $5,500, and net revenue is approximately $4,775. The Willows Mansion hosted 4 events in March, and 8 events are scheduled for April. Income to date is approximately $8,750. The facility continues to be rented for functions, along with hosting many of the department's programs and camps in 2011. The Fenimore Woods Picnic Shelter, Clemacrone Park, Beau Connor Park, Cowan Park, Willows, and other picnic areas are currently being rented for the 2011 season. Outdoor field scheduling is taking place with our department and the school district, along with other schools and organizations within the Radnor community, in order to prepare for the busy spring and summer sports seasons. The park supervisor, Paul Totero, has also been busy preparing and addressing field conditions and communicating with the community sports contacts regarding field openings and closures. Paul has also been addressing other park maintenance items throughout the township. The water has been turned on at the parks and the comfort stations have been prepared for community usage. The entrance combination is 1, 2, 3. Township staff and members of the Radnor Wayne Little League Association have been assessing the damage caused by high winds that tore off the roof of the B Field dugout at Emlentonell Park in late February. A local architect has reviewed the existing conditions of the dugouts at Emlentonell as well as at Enke Park and have submitted general observations and a scope of the proposed work to be done. Documentation has been reviewed and approved by the Community Development Department staff. Contractors are reviewing the project scope with the primary focus of repairing the dugout roof at Emlentonell. Radnor Wayne Little League will be reviewing the bid submissions and details in the coming weeks. The leaf mulch program has begun and is available for residents at the Willows, Emlentonell Park, Philippone Park, Fenimore Woods, Harford Park, Skunk Hollow Park, and Ithan Valley Park while supplies last. An update on the Cowan Park DCNR grant project is as follows. The township staff has met again with the architect and will be meeting again next week to revise the final drawings and specifications. It is anticipated that the project will go to bid sometime in May. We are also in the process of formally requesting a grant extension from DCNR to lengthen the timeline to complete the project later in 2011. The Radnor Conservancy, Friends of Radnor Trails, and Radnor Historical Society have been working with our department to add 2 additional trail history signs onto the Radnor Trail through donations and no cost to the township, one at the old West Wayne Station and one at the old Sugartown Road Station. The signs were successfully installed on Friday, April 8th, and they look terrific. For more information and updates on what's happening in the Parks and Recreation Department, please be sure to check out the weekly reports at www.radnor.com under featured links. Those are updated on Thursday of each week. Thank you, and that concludes my report for March.
Thank you, Tammy. I guess first, I just want to say thank you to all the efforts and detail that you and your staff are putting into the updates. They are certainly much more detailed than we've seen, I think, in the past, and thank you to you. Anybody on the board have any questions or comments on Tammy's report? The combination for the comfort stations, is that posted on the scroll, or has that been sent out to all the sports groups so that everybody's aware?
It's currently not posted on the scroll.
Okay.
We can do that, but I believe it has been communicated with the community sports organizations.
Okay. I'm just saying that the scroll, that may or may not be the best place for it, but and maybe we can think of where to go with that. But I think there's always a question as to what the combination is, and invariably there, folks are calling and saying, where is it and where can we find it? So maybe we can send a note out to the sports groups that there's, I think probably the biggest folks that don't know it are folks that are coming into the township from, outside, that, maybe we can somehow get that information to them.
Absolutely. We can also look to put it on the website too, if that might be helpful for folks.
Okay. No other questions? Do we want to go to, why don't we go to Shade Tree report?
The report this month, I'm scheduled to attend on April 28th.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Great.
Next month.
School board report, Brucey?
Thank you. We have a tentative agreement with the Radnor Township Education Association for their contract, and I just want to say that we had a special board meeting this past Tuesday, and recommended that the administration prepare a 1.4% tax increase budget, and we will be voting on that in May. So it's not going to be above 1.4. Your taxes are not going to go above 1.4%.
Okay, that's welcome news. Any committee reports? I had a open space committee meeting that I went to, and I guess the big thing that probably relevant to the Parks Board would be the discussion or further discussion on the cemetery acquisition. It was proposed to the Board of Commissioners that acquisition potentially be deferred until the rewriting of the open space plan was more finalized, and that they would address the acquisition of properties such as that within the plan, and I believe that was approved by the commissioners. So that would be a report from the open space. Anything from EAC?
No report.
Okay. John, any update from Board of Commissioners?
Two important things that are parks related on the next agenda are the consideration of the Agnes Irwin lease, and also the transfer of the lease for the Willows Cottage from Radnor Conservancy to the Friends of the Willows Cottage.
Okay.
And actually, as far as the cemetery, nothing was approved by the commissioners. The report was just accepted by the commissioners.
All right. Why don't we go to new business? And first item on new business is the discussion of the park signage at Emlyn Tennell Park regarding dogs.
Sarah Pilling and Jen Rogers, residents of Garrett Hill, are here tonight to talk a little further about this and discuss the signage in more detail. So they're going to take over. Before they get started, I just want to give a thank you to Sarah Pilling and some other residents up in the Garrett Hill community. They did a cleanup and restoration of the wetlands on Saturday, April 9th, with tremendous success. So I want to thank them for doing that.
We've come to speak to you to ask for a change of policy and signage for Emlyn to Nellfield. Maybe first we want to introduce ourselves. Jen?
Sure. Oh, can you hear us? Okay. Hi, my name's Jen Rogers. I moved to Garrett Hill about a year ago. I live there with my husband. We moved from the city of Philadelphia. And just wanted to bring this to your attention as we are dog owners and are very, very happy to be living in on Garrett Avenue where Emlenton Outfield is.
And I'm Sarah Pilling. I live at 29 Garrett Avenue, and I've lived here for 29 years, going on 30. And I also have 2 little dogs. We have no intent to turn Emlenton Park or a request into a dog park, but a place where dogs are allowed, to allow the dogs in the park when their owners are in the park doing something else. And maybe first I should give you a little bit of history. I think the walking trail was built around Emlenton in about 97. And in 98 I got a little Jack Russell Terrier and didn't realize I wasn't allowed to walk her until I saw this big sign that says no dogs in the park at $1,000. And there was another young woman who had a champion Dalmatian who she was doing obedience training. And she wanted to bring the dog to the park to do the obedience training, and the sign said no dogs in the park. So we got together a petition, and we got over 300 signatures in Garrett Hill who said dogs should be allowed in the park. Jim Marks was the commissioner at the time. He didn't think it was a very good idea, but he had to listen to his constituents. And we're able to get the dogs in the park with this sign that, Tammy, how do I get the sign up on the, there it is.
Right there.
With this sign that has caused great confusion. No dogs in the park, $1,000 fine, and then in quite small letters, except under the following conditions. Well, the police will come along. They don't really, they just look at that sign and they come out and they're very nice and they say, your dogs aren't allowed in the park. And we go, excuse me, sir, could you go back and look at it again? So really for the last, if I could count, about 13 years, dogs have come to the park. They come on a leash. It's mostly in the early morning or in the evenings. But what we've discovered over time, and where this sign is just totally inconsistent, is this parents of the sports kids. They're bringing their dogs because dogs are no longer something you keep in a kennel. Jen took her Rhodesian Ridgeback Christmas shopping at Macy's last year. And where did you spend New Year's Eve?
Rittenhouse Hotel.
With the dog. So we've got a conflict here. You've got this sign that the first thing they say is no dogs in the park, and you need to know that I was both a witness to a crime and the victim of a crime over that sign at Emlenton Outfield. I thought the guy was pulling a gun out of his briefcase. Fortunately, it was only a camera, and about a week later, another gal who lived at Radnor House and I were walking our dogs, and he pulled out a mace, and he tried to mace the dog, and the gal cut between them, so she got it full in the face. She was a woman of color, and there were quite a few racial epithets, and this man went to prison for 2 years. So there's another whole factor in this. So there's this inconsistency. The hours seem realistic or unrealistic. It says 7 o'clock till dusk. Well, how many months of the year is 7 o'clock dark? So it isn't dusk.
I just wanted to interject, if you don't mind.
Oh, no.
Right before we came, it's a gorgeous day, so my husband and I walked the dog and our son around the park, and it was really a great experience because there are several sports teams playing there today. Little kids were coming up and asking, which I have noticed in Radnor Township, all the children, I don't know if it's done at school, or I say, may I pet your dog? And of course, our dog's friendly, he's under our control. We allowed them to pet the dog. There was a new puppy there, and the dogs were, socializing, and it was just a very harmonious situation. Although it isn't in compliance with the hours. But I can tell you, and I don't think there are any cops here, but there were 4 dogs there tonight, and they were all under control and no issue.
So what we'd like to request to you, and the other issue which Jen talked about, is that dogs are part of the socialization. Adults talk to adults, what kind of a dog is, where did you get it, the kids have dogs. I have 2 little dogs, And I'll get little teeny kids, and they'll sort of be this way, could I pet your dog? I keep them under control, and the next thing you know, the little kid is saying, could I take your dogs for a walk? And so I say, come on, we're all gonna walk together, so that these children are being socialized to dogs so they're not afraid of them. And the other issue is the dogs are becoming socialized to other people and other dogs. So if I can do this,
What is,
the
oh,
next one. There we are. So we would like to suggest the following as a sign: that dogs are welcome at all times under the following circumstances. Dogs must be under the control of an adult at all times. Animal waste can cause disease and pollute waterways. Cleaning up after pets is mandatory. And I understand from Tammy there may be some of those containers, which is take a bag, bring a bag, and we'd like to suggest that 2 of them be put up in the park so that there's no excuse and you say, oh, I'll pick it up the next time because I don't have a bag with me. And right now there is nothing like that. And then please be considerate of the Garrett Hill neighbors, as excessive noise and disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. And then there's room for other options. You know, we just think that it would help Emlyn Tunnel. It is definitely used in the spring and the fall very heavily. On Saturdays, there are dogs all over the place, all day long. And in reality, they're out of compliance. So let's work together to get the signage and the animals sort of in consistency. And that's about it. Do you have any questions?
First question, well, first, thank you for coming in, and as a dog owner. Tammy, can you, is there a general policy across the board with parks and what the limits or limitations are for dogs within the parks?
The way the code book states it, and this is the only thing that I'm aware of, is that it states pets running free. Pets may accompany owners when under control, except in areas specifically posted against pets. So if there's any other type of policy or written code in regards to pets in parks, I'm not aware of it. That's all I'm
But
aware of.
most parks do have signs that say no dogs allowed, not even with times or anything other than Hartford. Is that right?
Correct.
And Emlyn Tunnel.
Right.
Yes.
So with the exception of all the park, this will be 2 exceptions you're going to grant. Okay, here are with the signage allowing dogs. As you mentioned, all the other parks prohibit dogs.
Correct.
I wouldn't say that all parks have a sign posted against dogs, but maybe Paul has a little bit better of an idea. I know we want to eventually get around and take pictures of all the signage in the park so that we have an inventory of that. I know that the Willows is posted against it. I know a number of other parks are, but I don't know if it's 100% other than Emlyn Tunnel and Hartford Park.
I guess going back to the history, since I don't have that, I'm relatively new on the board, what was the origin of having this particular park posted with the sign? And I'm interested to find out, apparently, when the signage went up way back when, a former commissioner was against signage. Was there a reason for that?
There's no dogs in the park.
Can I offer some insight? I was
Yes.
on the Parks and Rec Board when this came up.
In about 1998.
97, 98 timeframe, and that's after we had reconfigured that park and put the walking trail in. There is, as a general rule, no dogs in the park, so the folks came to us with their concerns. The board, the Parks and Rec Board recommended to the commissioners that dogs be allowed in the park as long as they're walked on the outside of the walking trail. So they wouldn't be on the playing surfaces where the kids are, so that addresses the health concern. And that's pretty much been the guideline for Emlyn Tunnel. And then that was about the same time Hartford.
I guess what I'd like to see, if we're going to move in that direction, is a signage that would be common to all the parks without an exception for this particular one. I am in agreement, I'm a former dog owner, that I think we have to coexist in a responsible manner, okay? And it seems like we're trying to get at it here. but it would be nice to have something consistent across the entire township, because if you do it in one particular area, what's to prevent some of the community members in another area saying, why can't we have it there?
Well, the reality is that in almost every park in Radnor Township, you'll find a dog. And at the Willows is so inconsistent, because it says not in the Willows, except if you're on the trail going to Skunk Hollow, guess what? There are dogs. And then to try and come back, you either have to hike back up through the trail, or you do bring your dog on a leash back to the parking lot to leave. So it's all a little inconsistent, and it's not enforced.
Is there
There are people at McCrone Park every day walking their dogs.
Is there a reason that you took the language out about having dogs on the playing field area in your proposed?
Well, we felt if they were under the control of the adults, that could be added. If
Okay.
they were under the control of the adults, then the adults would know. There's just no desire to let these dogs just run free. It's just to get some consistency. And the other piece you should know is that Radnor House is very prescriptive on where their dogs can be. And so Radnor House dogs are coming to Emerald Tunnel also, because the only place they're allowed to be outside at Radnor House is by the dumpsters in the back, and that's not where you're going to take your little kid when you go out in the evening. I mean, last summer, the Emerald Tunnel Park was just filled with people, every single night, people picnicking and walking their dogs. It was so hot, and we were all out there till late hours.
I guess the other comment I would have with respect to your proposed signage here is I would be very cautious with the term dogs must be under the control of an adult at all times. I think there could be some more restrictive type verbiage there, such as leashed at all times, because what I'm considering control of my animal may not be what that person over there is, and you would have a situation where I thought the dog was under control, but circumstances prevented that.
Like dogs must be on a leash at all times or something like that, yeah.
And again, going back, consistency with signage for all the parks in the township, I think would be.
Yeah, I think we have, I think we have to have some consistency in all the parks, not necessarily just Emerald Tunnel. Anybody else?
I think it's a great idea, Sarah.
I mean, if we're going to
Yeah,
be
it's great.
considering, I mean, I don't know if this is even up for consideration, just adjustments to the policy of parks in general. I don't know if it would be wise to make little incremental changes here and then then adjust to all the
Is
parks
there
at
a
the same
written
time.
policy that we could potentially look at and discuss and see if there's,
A written policy other than what's in the codes?
yeah.
I'm not aware of it.
Or can we get a copy of the
Can we
code
get
so
a
we can
copy
take
of
a
the
look at
codes
that?
rather than just trying to make a alteration?
Well, I think that if I'm reading the sentence correctly, we appreciate Ms. Billings and Ms. Rogers coming in, and we're generally in agreement of acknowledging the need. I think what we're not able to speak to is how to craft a policy out of that without having more information. Fenton, perhaps the field subcommittee could meet with the township people, understand what the existing requirements are throughout the park, and then come back with a recommendation that kind of takes these considerations into effect and make sure there's nothing else that we're missing.
Okay.
Yeah, especially maybe being able to see, I know it was flashed up on the two screens, just the changes, what it is now and then what the changes are, almost like a red line kind of a document might be helpful for the subcommittee as well.
That, and also what signs are posted in some of the other parks that might,
I think most of them, to answer that, most of them it says no dogs allowed.
no dogs at all.
Yeah, $1,000 fine.
$1,000 fine.
Okay.
And, walking in the background are some people walking their dogs.
Walking their dogs, right, okay.
It just leads to a lot of confusion.
Okay.
And I think the whole nature of how people care for dogs and clean up after dogs has changed considerably in the past 15 years.
Yes. Yes, thank you for acknowledging that. We just appreciate you listening to us and for being able to bring this issue to you.
Thank you for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for coming.
Sure.
Absolutely. Anybody with public participation or questions?
Hi, Jim Schneller, Radnor, St. David's Park. I use the parks a lot. We have to remember that just because people are more conscientious these days, they aren't all conscientious. And more so, we're not bringing in the other half, the liquid version.
Right.
Now, people like to go to parks to lie down. People like to go to parks and do all kinds of things. I think Emlyn Tunnel is nicely tailored, or vice versa. But because it's a busy, busy park, but also a lot of Radnorites like to just go and relax. They like to walk in bare feet, perhaps even. But whatever the reason, I think that a lot of the reasons for these laws are still here, sanitary-wise.
But their dogs are allowed in that park now.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about a township-wide, if there was a township-wide lessening.
If I'm hearing Tammy correctly, dogs are allowed in the park
All the parks?
Unless it's posted.
unless it's posted.
And is it comprehensive, or any parks?
Well, we need to take a look
Which
at
is
that.
what
We need to-
what we're talking
Yeah.
about doing is taking a look at what the actual policy is
Right.
and getting together and seeing if we can make something that's uniform for the parks, and if there are parks that
So-
are
Yeah,
excluded.
that's
So
why I
if there's
spoke.
a dog, an area where dogs shouldn't be, then we should get a sign up there that says no dogs allowed in the park, or fine, or whatever.
Yes.
But
But
otherwise,
then consistency, you can't grant something in a more urbanized setting.
correct, which is what we're talking about, looking at and trying to come up with a
Great.
plan that is consistent, where the dogs are allowed to be consistent throughout,
Or not.
or not, right?
I mean, we have Hartford that it's one park now, dogs are allowed to run free and do whatever they want, which is great. I'm sure dog lovers like that in some sense. And maybe it is a good idea for, on the other side of the township, to have another place where dogs can go. Whether, I don't know if you want them off the leash like at Hartford, but.
Right.
But I don't know if you want every park also to have dogs in them as well. There's
Correct.
certain other people that may not like dogs, or, as you say, want to walk around barefoot and not have to worry about what they're walking in.
What we might want to consider is maybe the parks with the walking path in it. Maybe those could be the parks that are considered for being permissible to dogs.
Oh, whatever you can do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All righty. Next, under new business, playground program recommendation and discussion.
I apologize if this might be a little bit difficult to see up on the screen, but each of you do have a copy of two pieces of paper that are clipped together that will be titled Radnor Township Parks and Recreation Playground Program Analysis, Total Participants. So if you want to refer to that, and I can try and enlarge this a little bit so we can at least see the top part of it. What I would like to do tonight is to take an opportunity and talk with you all about a program and its viability for the future, specifically in 2011 as we move forward in planning our summer and finalizing our summer details. As many of you may know, the playground program has been in existence for a number of years, probably beyond 30 years, maybe even longer. I'm not really sure of the entire history or when it originated, but I know it's been around for a long time. A little bit of background about the program. It's been a free multiple week program. It's been as many as 8 several years ago. It's been cut back to 6 weeks. It's operated daily, used to be from 12 to 5 p.m. In recent years, cut back to 12 to 4 p.m. And it's been generally for ages 8 and above. It's provided an opportunity in 4 different park locations, which I've indicated here: Clemacrone Park, Callum Park, Beauconner Park, and Odoricio. We have supervised activities that take place during the time frame by a staff member that we directly hire from the department, who's there basically to do arts and crafts, sports and games, different types of activities, impromptu games, team building activities, things like that. And basically just provide an opportunity for the kids in that neighborhood to go to their local park and have a place to hang out and do some organized activities throughout the summer. What I wanted to do is just take an opportunity to review with you what the analysis of the attendance has looked like, specifically over the course of the last 3 years that we have really tried to document it. And the method that we use to document this information has been by our staff member who's assigned at each of the parks. They basically would keep a log sheet every day. So when people come to the park, kids come into the park to participate in the program, they would either have them sign in or they would write their name down, and they would document this every day so that we could monitor basically how many kids we have coming and going, with the understanding, of course, that a kid might come at 12, leave, and we'd sign him out, but then he might come back later on, maybe for the last hour of the day. Basically, the analysis represents, by park, basically a total of what those numbers have looked like. So just a quick look at that has shown that we have had limited numbers. We've have had a decline over the last 3 years, although 2009 in its entirety does look like it was a little bit higher, obviously, than 2008. But what's important is when you break this program out and you look at the total of kids that are coming over the course of the 6 weeks. You could see, for example, at Clemacrone we had 125 kids throughout the full 6 weeks attend the program. We had 37 in 2009, then we had 44 in 2010. And I also tried to give a little bit of a look at what this looks like by week. So you could see going back to 2008 again for Clemacrone specifically, it worked out to be about 20.8 kids that would show up per week. And then in 2009, approximately 7.4 per week. And then in 2010, approximately 7.3 per week. And as you look at this, specifically over the course of 2010, as we move on to Cowan Park, there were 2.3 kids on average that would come per week, 8.8 per week at Beau Connor Park, and about 15.5 per week at Odoriccio. So we have seen a visual decline in the program. Less kids have been participating. Like I said, this has been a thorough documentation of the actual kids who have participated in the program, not just people who are just hanging out in the park playing basketball or doing another activity that's not associated with this particular program. Back in 2008, we actually used to have trips, weekly trips that were also available to the kids who attended the program. We actually had to cancel all 3 of those in 2008. In 2009, we didn't even offer them. In 2010, we didn't offer them because we had very low attendance. We also noted in 2009 that none of the Radnor Day Camp participants who are getting off of the bus that runs daily to the day camp program that actually drops the kids off at 3 o'clock at each of these sites, none of them were in attendance of the program as well. Because one might think, at least in our department, that it could provide a safe place for some of those kids getting off of the day camp bus. They could come over to the program for an extra hour of basically free care or supervision, and then they could get picked up from their parents and go home. The observation was not made last year, so I can only cite 2009 that kids did not participate from the day camp program in this program. So I basically just had prepared an analysis and a breakdown of all that information for you so you could take a look at the attendance. I guess most importantly, what I would like to look at is what this program costs the township. We have, as I had mentioned, 4 staff members that are assigned basically at each of the 4 individual sites. We have a seasonal supervisor that oversees those people. This person is also responsible for doing a number of other things. So if you actually take a look at what their salary is, the one seasonal supervisor, I've actually taken that's a percentage of the time that's actually allocated for them to direct and lead and supervise the playground program specifically. So that's a true cost of what their salary is indicative to the playground program. So in total, when considering the Social Security and Medicare that's also being paid on behalf of the staff members that are employed by the township, you can see basically over the course of the last 3 years, we've spent a lot of money that has gone towards this program. And I projected this year we'll probably spend about $4,700 to be able to execute this program, similar to how we have in years past, over the course of 6 weeks, 12 to 4 p.m., and basically not with offering any type of trips or additional activities. Now, one of the benefits of this program really has been is that when that day camp bus does drop off the kids at approximately 3:15, 3:30, the supervisor that we've hired is there so that if the kids get off the bus and there's a fight that breaks out or there's some type of an issue that happens, because things happen, a camper may get lost, get on the wrong bus, go to the wrong site. The beneficial part is that we can pick up a phone and we can actually call that person and we can say, hey, be on the lookout with the kid with the yellow backpack. Stop that person. You know, they got on the wrong bus because they're a kindergartner and they're attending Radnor Day Camp. So that's been helpful. So in that case, the program has proved to be valuable. And one of the solutions that I had, and I wanted to talk to you about, if we were to discontinue the playground program, what I'd like to suggest is that we could require some of our day camp staff members to actually ride the camp bus. So they would get on in the morning, ride with the campers to the day camp, ride back to the given site, and they would be there to serve basically as a leader until the kids go home, you know, for the rest of the day after they get off the bus from day camp. So they would serve as not only that supervision piece that we would be missing by discontinuing the program with the playground supervisor, but they also would be an extra set of eyes on the bus ride too, because we do tend to have issues that happen on the bus ride as well. So we have actually taken some steps to try and improve the playground program over the course of the last couple of years. For instance, we've tried to enhance our advertising. We've tried to position the staff member within the park at a visible location. So for instance, at Cowan, sometimes they would set up their table behind the comfort station. So if you're out on the road or you're coming into the park or you live in the neighborhood, you don't know, to you there's no one in the park. So we've tried to actually reposition the supervisor so that they can be in a visible spot. That way it would be more inviting for kids to come over, you know, and attend the program. We've also tried to encourage greater leadership through our training program that we have through the summer, for our summer staff at the beginning of summer. So we've tried through different unique opportunities to try and teach them more leadership skills so that they can try and, you know, entice the kids when they come into the neighborhood and try to get them to play and take part in the games that they have. So we've been, we feel we have actively tried to, you know, increase the attendance for the program and try to gain, obviously, you know, a greater attendance and greater interest in it. So I see three possible options basically for the program. We could discontinue it altogether, you know, and save a large portion of this cost. We could also look to maybe cut back the program or minimize it in some way, you know, or modify it so that it's not at as high of a cost. And then we could also, like I had said, basically we could try to enhance it, I guess, through some other methods, or we could also use the approach of getting somebody to ride the camp bus ride the camp bus basically to and from the site to sort of fulfill that element that, you know, we feel was of most importance. The township is under a lot of scrutiny with regards to, or I should say our department is under a lot of scrutiny with regards to its programs and its costs. We're trying to take active measures to try and deliver programs that are cost-effective, you know, are being delivered in a cost-effective manner. And taking a step and trying to review all of this in more detail for you, I feel will be helpful to try and get some feedback to see what your opinion is, because our department is cognizant that there is a history with this program. So before we would jump to discontinue it or modify it, I'd like to get your opinion to see what direction you would like us to move.
Tommy, just a quick question. You did a nice job with the analysis. Fenton, are you going to handle questions now? Is it all right?
Yeah, sure.
I guess precipitative drop. I just did some quick figuring. You know, for the number of youngsters that you have participating here, it only comes to $27 per head for the entire season. What, which is not a lot of money, although I guess when you look at it, you're talking still $8,000. Over the years, would you attribute the drop in numbers? And I'm looking at, geez, Callan Park went from 70 all the way down to 14. Again, and forgive me if you mentioned the age range here, because it is a service, I think, to families, you know. I guess a question on 12 to 4, I don't know. I know if two parents are working, you know, critical timing for them, you know, is not at 12 to 4, but what do you do in the morning? Are there other competing interests that are taking the kids away from this? Or I guess a little bit of background as to why these numbers are dropping like that. Interest, what, you know?
Well, I mean, interest is, I think, a big key. I think overall, the township and the community has seen an increase in overall programs and camps that are available within the community. So not only things that have been on the increase, but that are offered by our department, obviously, that you have to pay for, but I think in the community as a whole, there have been an increase in opportunities. Probably, you know, 99% of those are paid, of course. You have to pay to participate. I also think that, you know, kids may be staying at home a little bit more, staying in air conditioning. You know, we know that the computer is a big epidemic that takes kids out of out of active play and active participation in a lot of parts of our society today. So I think you could maybe attribute that maybe as part of it. We also have had some limitations in our advertising. As much as we have tried to advocate e-communications, we have also had some inabilities to get out in a paper format throughout the last couple of years that, you know, maybe we would witness just as an overall drop in attendance perhaps to our department and programs that we're delivering.
If we look at the composition of age now, the age range for the youngsters is from, what's the low end?
We advertise the program that they can be 8 and up unless they come with an adult or a sibling or an older
And where
sibling.
did you find the bulk of the kids? Or could you say that most of them were 8, 9-year-olds coming to this, or 10-year-olds coming to the program, or you really wouldn't want to say?
I can't say. I would have to go back and look and see if we actually charted ages. Even though we have an informal sign-in sheet, I don't think we've ever captured age data. It would probably be more of just the department opinion and assessment if we were to attach something to that. But I mean, the majority of our programs are most heavily attended by the 8, 9, 10 type of age range. I mean, we do see overall a deficit once you get into 11 and up, because kids are in more specialty programs or they're just not participating as heavily. Generally, the teenage range is one of our most challenging areas.
And let's say the schools also offer, because I know my own children were counselors in the school programs. Don't they offer a township program either through swimming and so on, or no? Is that
Probably through the day
competition?
camp.
That's just the
Radnor Day
Radnor
Camp
Camp.
Radnor
offers
Day
the
Camp, which is a
swimming.
cost to it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Is there an outcry of people saying from the community, hey, we kind of like need this, or it's meeting a need in our family structures, or should we look at taking the $8,000 or $9,000 and supplementing something else to try and support that? You don't want to get into competition, I don't think, with
Right.
other community activities, right?
Right.
That's not the idea behind this. And my reason for saying it, do you want to beef this up and then put a cost to it, and then you're in competition with the other? I don't know
Right.
whether you want to get into that.
But what about, has there been any thought of just asking for donations? Like every time you come, $1 a day or something like that. A suggested donation, $1 a day, and you know, the mother comes in the beginning of the week, throws a 5 in a bucket or whatever. I mean, it might be hard to control that cash, but
That's a great suggestion. I don't think that's one that we've actually ever considered. I mean, I know we're currently putting together sponsorship opportunities to send out to the community. Maybe
Right.
there's a way we could add this program as an option to businesses or organizations or nonprofits within the community that they may want to support it or contribute to it.
right. My other question is, if you were to cut it down to 2 locations, do you get the same benefit of cost? Would you cut your costs in half, or do you think you'd only cut them at a third, or what are your thoughts on that?
I would probably end up cutting those costs in half. And the seasonal supervisor piece of it, as it was, I was looking to potentially not make that a specific summer person that's also working at the day camp and overseeing tot lot like we have in the past, but perhaps running it in-house. like having one of our in-house staff members potentially just oversee the supervisors. So with 2 people, it would be a lot more manageable.
Right.
So I could see us being able to probably cut those costs in half.
Tammy, looking at these numbers, I'm confused a little bit. Is it fair to say that on average, there were about 34 kids in this program per week? Because I'm assuming that 204 number is the cumulative
Right.
of how many kids were participating.
Right.
And you're looking at 5-day weeks, right?
5-day
through-
week, Monday to
through
Friday, 12 to 4 p.m.
So that's an average of 7 a day or 6 a day?
Yeah, I
8 a
think,
day.
I think this is such a small program. I don't think it has demand. I support your recommendation to discontinue it. I see it of such small number
Right.
that it's not meeting a need, there's not a demand for it. I think we should allow it to discontinue gracefully.
I would also think that if we cut the locations down, I would assume that a lot of this is neighborhoods kids coming over just to spend the day. So if you cut the locations down, kids aren't going to travel to
Right.
one location.
That's a
So
fair
your
assessment.
attendance
They're
could go
walking,
even-
More
they're
credibility to
gonna
Mike's
walk.
Attendance should go even lower. Yeah.
But you have 2 parks here that are close to each other, Bow Connor and Odoriceo. So if you cut one out, you could have a combination. One.
But I think, Brucey, that in a way, if looking at these numbers, it's not that there are 44 kids at Clem McCrone Park at any one time. It's 44 kids spread over 6 weeks throughout the summer.
Right.
Right, so what's that even come out to?
We were lamenting this last year about the not having paper
Yeah,
to
we-
advertise.
We had
Weren't
some
You had
discuss.
some problems with getting attendance, I think, at the day camp last
Right.
summer because of that.
We have. I
Yeah.
think overall, the lack of being able to get paper in the backpacks it has limited our exposure in the households. And hopefully we're mitigating that with the township newsletter, which is a tremendous opportunity, as well as our brochure, which will continue to be available for folks. And, we'll take them to the library and what have you. But I think that across the board has been a challenge.
Yeah, I think we've had discussions as far back with, even with Tom Blumstrom, with regards to the lack of interest and the lowering of the numbers of the attendance and, kids coming and leaving, and so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that in order to make the program better, and I don't want to say to make the numbers double or triple or quadruple, but I think that in order to make it better, it's going to come at a greater cost to the township.
Right.
Because, I would send my leader out into the out to the doors and knock on all the doors and take some extra time and hand out flyers and try and do things like that, but that's more staff time. It's going to come at a greater cost to try and do that, or increase advertising, go basically, send to specific areas if we were going to do a mailer to try and capture, those particular areas and send them a specific flyer about the program, right in those neighborhoods. So, I think it's possible to increase the attendance, but it's certainly going to be a program that, it's going to be funded without, a direct source of revenue coming in. And I think that's the key. Overall, I think, everybody's cognizant that our department is under, sort of a lot of scrutiny. We've been under a microscope to make sure programs are covering costs. And this is a program that it was never designed to cover costs because it's been free. So without having a revenue source for it, it's difficult for us to, be able to operate it in that manner unless we establish that this is one program that, we can subsidize.
And if there's always a demand for it, for some reason there's an outcry to bring this program back, it's always something that can be reconsidered
Right.
and looked at. But it doesn't sound like, based on the numbers and based on what we've been hearing, it doesn't sound like there's such an outcry or real demand for it right now.
No, it would also seem that there are probably days that there might be a staffer there or 2 staffers there and maybe only 1 kid, if any,
Right.
showing up.
Right.
And that's not worth the risk and reward for running the program.
Yeah.
What do you think implementing a cost to attend would do to attendance?
It would definitely make it lower, in my opinion.
Okay. And the other question I had was, what strain would putting a staffer on the bus create to the other camp, the day camp? Assuming that we're limited staff members, and what that would do, pulling and taking somebody away just to ride the bus for.
Yeah, but if they have to get to the bus, they
Right.
just go to Clem McCrone, get on the bus, and with all the kids in the morning, they ride the bus there, so they're monitoring it, and they
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
you're talking about taking a staff counselor and putting him on the bus,
Right.
which is pulling away from the day camp, right?
Well, but the day camp would be over at that point.
Okay,
So
okay.
like they
On the
would get
day
there
camp,
with
on
the
the way
kids
back.
when it
Okay.
begins,
I'm
and then
sorry.
they'd get on the bus and ride
Okay.
back whenever it's over. There would be a financial impact to that. I think it would be minimal.
Probably increase some overtime, right?
They would be incurring.
But wouldn't that happen very infrequently? I mean, if the child gets on the wrong bus and he's in a program, usually that sort of thing happens in the first couple of days, and then he figures out what's the right bus. And I would think it would be overkill to have someone ride the bus in addition to the bus driver, unless you feel there's a safety issue that the kids are always getting into some mishap. If you feel that, I think that's a valid issue. To have someone available in case a kid gets off the wrong bus, I think that's a different problem.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's frequent that we have issues, but we do. We do have
Well,
situations
that should move on its
occur.
own merit, is I guess
Well,
my
and
point.
part of that could be addressed through better communication with the bus driver and better just overall communication with the parents too.
Tommy, just one other question. The origin of the 12 to 4, why is that time frame? Yeah, I could see kids getting up in the morning and they get moving, and 12 o'clock's like another
It's the
century
hottest
to them,
time of the day.
Is that why you think they picked
No,
12 to 4?
I'm saying maybe that's why it's down. 8 to
Yeah.
12 would be cooler to be outside or whatever, but
Okay, and the other question, would this be on the docket to be eliminated for this 2011 series?
Yes.
I think that's
Yes,
what
okay.
the
I don't know
don't
the
know.
history of the time frame. Do you have a comment there? It's always been that since I've
It's always
been
been
here.
12 to 4.
It's always been 12 to 4 since I've been here, too.
Just knowing how kids function, you get up in the morning.
I think it's because
If you're talking
teenagers
about
tend
a
to sleep
14-year-old,
in
they'll
and-
get up at noontime, but an 8-year-old's up moving around, and by noontime, they're off on their own doing other things. I'm wondering if the time frame was adjusted, would that cause an increase in this? I don't know.
I
I
think
actually-
even a minor increase would not justify the expenses and time
At this-
spent
yeah.
on this.
I think there may have even been a day when the time was actually later, and it was more like
It was 12 to
4 to
5.
7
Oh.
at night or something like that to cover an evening. But that would have, that was in the history books before me. So it's kind of a rumor I've heard back in the day, so.
That goes
Don't
back
listen to those rumors.
almost 20 years.
John, Elaine, any comments, any thoughts? Does
I would
anybody?
make a motion that we eliminate the program.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you guys make a recommendation?
Okay.
I second it.
Okay. How do you want to phrase or the,
Just the fact that we have a program right now that seems to have lack of participation, lack of community interest, and it's costing the township it's costing the township at this point in time. Doesn't seem to be an interest in the community, so I recommend that we forego it.
I think,
So
wouldn't
we've
it
got
be a motion to adopt the recommendation?
adopt and make a recommendation?
Or do we
to
make
the
a recommendation to the Board of
Board of
Commissioners?
Commissioners and that we eliminate the playground program? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None? So we'll put together a motion to eliminate the playground program. Any public participation? Seeing none. Why don't we go to old business? And first item is the Radnor Activity Center at Sulpizio, and discussion of the building inspection report that we had about 60 days ago. I guess, any thoughts or discussions on, I think maybe, John, can you maybe give us an update as to where we stand with regards to addressing some of the issues and some of the inspection violation or code violations that Ray Daly had presented 60 days ago, and where we stand on them?
Well, my conversations with the manager were that the Public Works were going to take care of some of the more immediate issues that needed to be addressed. And what we had explored and what I'd like to request from you folks tonight is that you grab this issue and run with it and lead. We think that quite a few of these things could be done by volunteers, and volunteers including professionals such as electricians and plumbers. The township is willing to allow that as long as they're, in fact, licensed professionals. But, you know, as I mentioned at the last meeting, these are code violations. These are not imminent risk to someone's safety, but they are code violations and need to be addressed. So, you know, if you folks would grab hold of that, try to organize it. Things like there's some lights that need to be replaced, there's some doors that aren't working properly, there's the dampness problem in the stairwell where the tunnel used to be that, you know, I think a couple guys got in there and cleaned that up and put TheraSeal or dry lock on the walls and then put a small dehumidifier in there. There's a drain, a storm drain right there you could pipe the dehumidifier into. The issue of the water was tested and found to be not unsafe, maybe not pleasant to look at, but that could be handled by the installation of small cartridge filters on the drinking fountains. So I think it's things that could be addressed. Now the roof's a whole entirely separate issue.
Yeah, I would agree. The roof is certainly long-term. As an advisory board, do we have the autonomy to go out and solicit? I mean, to me,
well, you're going to be soliciting volunteers. You're not asking anyone, you're not paying anyone. And you do that, I mean, the sports teams, I'm sure all our sports teams have people on that fit this description. And we know those folks are generally good volunteers.
Any thoughts or comments?
I have a couple of comments. I feel this is kind of a serious matter. We received this document on the inspection done in November. It lists 3 pages of code violations, and I agree with John. I think a lot of the items are cosmetic, maybe oversimplifying it, but things that can be handled. However, there are other items that I think are much, much more substantial, and the idea of us looking for people to help doesn't sound to me to be a kind of process that would work effectively.
Well, you can, I would also suggest you work with the staff for those items that you feel should not be addressed by volunteers.
Well,
and then we'll have to develop a budget and work towards correcting those situations.
I agree with that. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think that the township needs to recognize the responsibility here of maintaining this facility, needs to do work if it can and when it can, and appropriate funds need to be dedicated. But my concern is that if, until that point, that there is a risk. If there's no risk, there wouldn't be 3 pages of violations here, and I think we have a responsibility of stewardship regarding that facility and the operation of it with our kids and school kids in it, that we'd be remiss in not raising our hand and saying, as stewards, as the public facilities with regard to Park and Rec, this isn't looking very good, and I think it needs to be raised to a level of greater seriousness than it's currently seen.
Mike, at our last meeting, I recall asking if there were health and safety issues associated with the violations that needed to be addressed, remediated before that facility could be safely used. And I don't know if you remember, Tammy, but your response was, no, to your knowledge, there were not health or safety issues. Is that still the position?
I haven't been made specifically aware of an imminent safety issue or risk, other than the information that's been divulged by the inspector. I'm not aware of anything specifically that I have been told, this is an area we have to quarantine, this is an area that we have to keep children away from or participants away from.
Now, that doesn't mean we don't have to fix it. Recognize that codes evolve. Something that may have been acceptable 20 years ago is no longer acceptable because the codes have evolved. Commissioner Schaefer and I went over and toured the facility top to bottom with Ray Daly. So we've seen every issue that he identified. Things like exit signs not working need to be immediately addressed. There was a door that wasn't latching properly. That needs to be addressed. There's a fire door that wasn't closing right. That needs to be immediately addressed. And that's the things that the township staff should be doing right now.
Well, what has been done since this initial report? I mean, has anything been done to any of the list of items, even as minor as putting a light bulb in an exit?
Well, it was more than a light bulb. It was a bed fixture.
But, you know, I mean, I guess, I'm not sure that all of us have
Can we
a
get an
sense of what's
updated
been
list?
done. Yeah.
I don't know, has anything been done?
Nothing has been done at the facility. Our staff have not been directed by our township manager to do anything.
Well, to Mike's point, there may not be anything immediately dangerous, you know, someone's not going to slip on a piece of ice or something like that and have a major problem, but for the same token, if there is something and a person can't get through a door, and someone then looks at the code violations we had, we could be up for some major liability here.
Sure.
In addition, just the idea that, you know, we're holding private entities within the township up to a certain standard. I think it's only fair that we hold ourselves up to that same standard.
Tammy, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Maybe is there someone else that, might prioritize the list of violations for their relevancy to, the safe operation of the place? We could ask that question.
We have asked that.
We did ask that question, and the gentleman from the township said very clearly that it's not either or. All these things need to be addressed. If it was any other operator other than the township, the building would be closed. That was very clear cut. I think that was our February meeting.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly. I mean, I'd like to make a motion that in accordance with the township code regarding the role of the Park and Recreations Board, its responsibility to advise the Board of Commissioners on township facilities, I'd like to make the following motion: that the township has advised us of numerous code and safety violations for the Sulpizio Gym, and whereas the Park and Recreation Board is obligated to advise the Board of Commissioners regarding facilities, the Park and Recreation Board recommends the closing of the Sulpizio Gym at the conclusion of the current recreation programs until such time as the needed repairs can be made to bring the facility into compliance with township code specifications. I would request a second.
Second.
My question, why qualify it with the ending of a program? I mean, if there's some risk or if there's some, the appropriateness of the thing would not be done
Well,
like any other violation.
I agree with
Restaurants.
John that there's not an immediate danger that you're going to fall through the basketball court. But we have programs in place with the school and other programs that are going to continue through the end of the school year. And then I would think at that point it would be appropriate to close the facility and make the needed repairs in time for the fall.
Tell me, what is going on at the gym now?
We currently have a number of rentals that go over the course of anywhere from individual rentals or birthday parties on weekends to things that are consecutive over the course of 6-8 weeks. We have the spring basketball program that's currently up and running through probably mid-June, and another one launched to go just after that. The facility's heavily used. We have daytime programming, we have lunchtime hoops, we have the men's hoops programs in the
Plus you have
evenings.
the upcoming summer programs,
the
which is
upcoming
going to be
camps.
very, very, very busy.
For me to say that there's a break between now and, let's say, August,
Right.
there isn't one.
And also, I guess one comment I have with the motion,
Andy, turn your mic on.
It is.
the one comment I have with the motion is currently proposes needed repairs is kind of, I think, somewhat subjective in what we've been talking about here, in that I think we all start off this discussion by saying the roof is a completely different issue, but from what I understand of that report, that might qualify as needed.
Well, over a longer period of time.
Is that,
And a plan needs to be put in place to fund it and then repair it.
I agree, but is that needed? I mean, that's what I'm saying in terms, in the way the motion's currently written, that would, I think, technically have to be addressed before it
Yeah,
could be reopened.
I think it probably needs to be addressed, yeah.
Okay.
The other question, when I came on the board and they started talking about Sulpizio Gym, I felt that there was some consideration given to long-term direction for that gym, whether we're going to maintain it, what happens with the school district if we close it down, or I guess I would not want to put good money after something bad. If you're going to invest in something right now for 3 or 4 years down the road, that someone has a vision that Sulpizio Gym will not be there, but will be taking another venue, whatever that may be. And I heard that, I think it was probably from the township manager.
Right.
Are they looking at, is someone entrusted saying, hey, we're putting together this long-range plan? We know we have to address immediate liability issues, and I have to agree with you that you can't have people coming in and using a township facility at a standard that's less than what we would expect from the private citizenry. So that should be addressed immediately. But after that, are we putting additional monies into something that may not be in existence in 5 years? I
well,
don't know
couple-
whether we want to do that.
A couple thoughts to that. One, we do have a lease with the school district. And I think that Sulpizio is an asset to the township. I think that given proper staffing, I think that it certainly has the opportunity to become much more of an asset and a centerpiece to the township. Given some of the financial constraints within the township, I think that's been a little bit of a area that we haven't been able to direct funds and/or staffing to be able to fully utilize that facility. So I think it is a viable facility within the township. Now, I'm sure there are folks that have visions of bigger, better things down the road, but there's anything that we're going to have bigger, better is going to have to certainly have funding opportunities and certainly planning, and how long down the road is that potentially going to be looked at or taken out. We certainly had the facility poll of the township as to investigated the possibility of having an indoor facility. I think it all came down to location and funding. So, I think those two items are still high on the list and certainly an issue. And, if we got a place to put it and we got somebody that came in and wanted to fund it, you know what? I think that we could probably put something together. But right now, we don't have either. So,
At this point right now, other than the cost of the roof, how much are we talking about to take care of these quote-unquote minor violations?
Don't know. I haven't seen any numbers, Tom.
Do you think it would be better?
Can we come up with a number and then figure out what we want to do on this?
I know
Because
that-
we might be able to solve the problem for a few grand.
We had
Okay.
a contractor that was in that looked at a number of
it's more
different
than that.
things, and, with including the roof, the total estimate was at $217,000. The roof was $114,000. So the electrical repairs were estimated at $34,000. There was some patching and sealing to the wall openings and the gaps and penetrations. That was approximately $5,000. The sump pump and dehumidifier at the bottom of the steps was approximately $11,500. And then there were the issues with the water lines, which varied because, I mean, they put costs to these things, but there's numbers that weren't able to be realized until they start doing work. So it's
Sure.
just an estimate, true
Sure.
estimate. But like replacing the water line to the building was $22,000. The corroded piping inside the building was $24,000, and flushing out the piping and the fixtures was approximately $6,000. So, although Billy Hagan had, whenever he was here, Public Works Director, he did put some costs as well, and we compared these to what the local contractor came in and estimated, and they were actually pretty close. So, like I'd said, you know, including the roof, about $217,000. But the roof itself is, you know, half of that.
Since this is a moving target, like in terms of when use is, I mean, it's not like a season, you know, come the end of the school year, all of a sudden it's going to be able to be shuttered, since it's sort of a moving target. Do you think it might be wise for us to maybe put a date in which an action plan has to be presented to the board in order to address all these things? Let's say 30 days, 45 days, what have you. And at that point, we could, and I'm not sure how we would do it, whether it would be through some kind of communication to the community and say, as a board, any entity that's interested in volunteering to help address some of these issues, please let us know. And then if this all falls on deaf ears, we know within 30 days we don't have a plan in place, we then make that recommendation to the board so that at least we know what's been addressed, what hasn't been addressed, and that we have a definite date for a plan of what we're going to go do going forward.
Bob, if I can ask you,
I was
is
actually
there
gonna
any
go there.
concern from your group of using this facility with these violations?
I would go one step further and just say, Bob, obviously you've been to the facility, you've seen the facility,
Right.
you've seen the report, aware of the issues that are there. I think you've had some interest in trying to orchestrate some of the township community to try and get involved in potentially addressing some of the issues. Any thoughts that you can share with us as to what interest, what is out there within the township?
I think a lot of it we have to do outreach for, because people aren't always aware, they're not always following what's going on all the time. But when the facility's available and then it's not available, all of a sudden there's an outcry. How come this happened? How come nobody told us? Because they don't always read the newspapers always don't carry the specific story that impacts them. Jim Cornelio's actually spent more time this past winter in there, and he's involved in the spring and summer programs as well that use that gym, you know, very, very frequently. Just, you know, the times that I've been in there to check things out or be back and forth during the wintertime, there's, I would say the most significant area was whether there was some electrical or door issues. I actually found a door issue, and all it took was a little screwdriver, and I fixed the door issue. Some of them are, you know, an exit sign isn't lit. It could be just a light bulb. It could be the whole circuit. So I think when you ask a contractor for an estimate, they're going to take it as, if I get a contract on this, I'm going to have to go back and find every circuit that goes back to and find the break in the wire and all that. So you're getting those kinds of numbers.
Right.
In reality, it may cost a lot less. So some of them you can't tell until you start to repair it. We have a couple electrician people that are involved in the sports programs that probably, you know, we've asked them, are they interested? One of them responded and said they'd be interested. But I talked to the township manager and I said, when can we get together to figure out if we can have a volunteer do something, whether it's signing waivers or giving their license or whatever it is, and I get no response. So I don't know whether this is something of, most of these things that are on the list, you would categorize as maintenance or deferred maintenance or ignored problems that need maintenance.
Right.
And then when you get this big list and take it to a contractor, you get a big price. Now, the roof issue is kind of very confusing to me because we actually saw leaking at odd times, like last year. I talked to Tammy about it. She saw it for a couple days after a major rainstorm, but then other rainstorms it didn't leak. My guess, and it's just a guess, is that there's some drainage, there's some downspout clogging, and then it clears up, and then you don't get the, it backs up when there's clogging. So without an expert roofer to see it when it's leaking and see it when it's not leaking, you don't know what the extent is. If it was leaking every time it rained, then I'd have a really big concern, but it's not. The issue with the underground passage and, the possibility, as John said, of dry locking the wall, I don't know why it wasn't done when they did the building. They spent $300,000 or $400,000 to invested of the township's money to get the building into shape to be used. And yet they let that wall just sit there as a raw wall. And maybe it was sealed from the outside, but that's not good enough on a cinder block wall. So some of these things may be, you try the easy fix takes care of 80% of the problem, and then you say, well, what's left of the problem, and can we fix it some other way, or do we have to have a more expensive solution? Because they don't seem to be structural, they don't seem to be throughout the whole system. The biggest worry was the water, because that would have been harder to figure out where it's coming from and what pipes have to be replaced, and more extensive. The upstairs bathrooms from the old locker rooms, they're not open to the public. I think they even closed the downstairs bathrooms, which were refurbished. I mean, they were refurbished, they were made usable, and showers are made usable, and a wall, dividing wall, so there's a men's side and a women's side. Those are not heavily used downstairs. Upstairs not used at all, it's used for storage. So when there's a plumbing problem that's in the upstairs, it's a different level of problem. And it's a matter of, pouring some water to get the trap to work. I mean, it's just not a big issue, and it has to be, somebody has to check on it, every couple of weeks to make sure it doesn't come back. So
Which should fall under routine maintenance.
Right. So I think it's all routine maintenance, possibly with the exception if the water was worse, which it doesn't seem to be.
No.
And the roof, if it's not something that can't be cleared up with, it doesn't have a gutter system. It's an internal system so you need somebody that can get on the roof to look at it. But the electrical problems, the exit signs, the doors, they all work when I went. Now, I wasn't testing every single one. And the way the building's laid out, there's a lot of exits. I know that the lease agreement with the school district basically has all the responsibility to the township.
Right.
For care and maintenance. It's a 30-year lease, and there's no termination provisions. So on its face, the township has leased it for 30 years, and they'd have to have a subsequent agreement to not lease it for the full term of the lease. So I think the township has an obligation, and cuts were made and decisions were made not to deal with the inspection issues. Even if you deal with 5% of them or 10% of them, I don't think it should take township board time and all this time that it's taking when the actual work effort is probably a couple days' work for a good percentage of the minor problems. So I'm waiting to hear back as to, can we get some process in place? The electrical people have their own insurance, they'll sign waivers. I mean, there's no issue with any of that. And, meet with somebody to get access and to say that's what you're going to do, and then have somebody inspect it after they do it.
Bob, how long since you made that initial inquiry have you not heard?
It's over a month, yeah. And then, some people get busy in the spring, they get busy in the, I mean, it just, then you get availability problems. You get the volunteers and then they're not available. But I think that I think there's there's two trade-offs here. The control that the township have with having their own employees do whatever it is they can do. And then when they get to a point that they can't do it because it's too big a job or it's beyond their capabilities, then are there volunteers that have those capabilities? But right now, it doesn't seem to appear that anything's being done.
I guess that's a question I have here. I'm not throwing darts at anyone, township-wise facilities, they do a nice job, but we've been discussing it now since I've been on part of this, the Parks and Rec Board, for like 2.5 months. And I get a feeling like these ongoing maintenance issues are just sitting there, that no one's putting it on a job ticket
Right.
as part of the maintenance department of the township
Right.
to say, get in there and, fix the door, take the screwdriver out. Is that the case? Is that what's happening, Tammy? Or we're just sitting there waiting, or, I don't know, or is someone waiting for the thing to completely come down, and then you have a problem and say, well, we have no other options here, than just to can it. But the longer we wait to do general maintenance items, and I'm not talking about qualified, like you mentioned, I assume, and not that I'm a qualified plumber, but the issue with the trap upstairs is that they don't have trap primers and the sewer gas is coming back because it's an unused waste system and showers, correct?
Well, the inspector found one dry trap.
Yeah, so you pour mineral oil
And he
down there
didn't
and that will
pour
last for
anything,
6
right.
months.
Right, he didn't put anything in it.
Yeah.
He just said, I inspected it and it
Yeah.
was empty. So, well, you can
So
put
those
you can put other things in
Yeah,
it.
that it's not going to evaporate. They're kind of minor things that
Right.
you don't need a certified electrician or plumber to come in and do it. Is there a listing of those tasks and somebody saying, hey, we're going to try and get to it as soon as this happens?
Well, there's a
Freed
list
up
of the
time?
inspection items, and I think,
For the
my
inspection
suggestion would be to this board to make a recommendation to the commissioners and to the management, the township management, that they respond as to which ones they have staff to fix.
Yeah, I wouldn't envision our township maintenance staff running new water lines into that building.
Right.
That's beyond them.
Right.
But some of the other things I would assume they should be able to take care of in the general course of Monday to Friday, I would hope, and that knock off some of those tasks to get them out of the way.
Right.
So that we are not faced with a situation. I have grave concern about that motion on the floor about saying, hey, here's the ultimatum, we're going to close the thing down, we're not going to use it. It affects all the activities that are scheduled there. It's another resource that we're taking away from the community. I don't want to see that happen, at least not on my watch.
Pat, we don't have the authority to close
No,
down.
But
All-
making that recommendation.
But I think that recommendation, and my intent is not to close the facility, but based on Bob's comments, based on what we've seen collectively for several months now, 3 months as far as I know, and this report from the township goes back to November 5th, it's obvious they're not doing anything. It's not a priority. It's not getting attention. I've heard no plan that there's going to be attention in the future. So how do we get the attention it deserves? And that's the intent of my motion. Hey, Jim.
Good evening, Jim Canelio, along with Tammy and Leah and Bob. I help run the Radnor Youth Basketball Program. The big program, of course, is in the winter. A couple years ago, we started a spring program, which is ready to start for the boys. We also started a fall program, and we hope to start a summer program for the 10, 11, and 12th grade boys in the summer. We're talking about that. It would be called, it would be playing later in the evening. It would be called the Moonlight League. The idea is to get these young men playing basketball at 10, 11 o'clock, or 9 or 10 o'clock, where they're doing something, where we know where they are, and they're doing something that they like and not getting in trouble. Usually I'm in the Sulpizio 2 or 3 times a week. I was last there on Sunday. We had an open gym for the spring program where they come out and play and they be evaluated. And I know that in the winter of 2010, there was a Saturday where the roof was leaking, and Tom Blumstrom and I had to go out and go there and mop the floors. I don't know whether there was some kind of short-term, whether there was any kind of repair, but since that time, I haven't seen any evidence of any leaking from the roof. Have you, Bob? So that was over a year ago. The lights work, the bathrooms work, not the ones in the locker rooms, but the girls' room and the boys' room on the gym floor work. The scoreboard works. There's no evidence of any, rain falling on the floor. The floor is in great shape. All the electrical works, the lights work, the doors work. I mean, I'm there several times a week. I'm running this program of these, 7th through 10th grade boys, and, from what I can see, it's in good shape. I don't see any evidence of any imminent collapse of anything. It looks like it's in good shape. I haven't done the inspection, but I don't see any evidence of things that need to be repaired right away. So I just wanted to. There's over almost 1,500 kids that go through that program. If we get this summer league up and running, so it's a four-season use of Sulpizio. It's a great gym. I mean, it's the grand old lady of Radnor for basketball. I mean, at one time the school district considered tearing it down for more parking space, and thank God that didn't happen. But I'd hate to see it closed even for a day.
Jim and Bob, I can't tell you how much respect I have for you guys for what you have done there, and I can't tell you what a huge proponent of Sulpizio I am. I've got dreams that we've shared many times of what that facility can be, the things we can bring into that facility, the different community activities, et cetera, et cetera. I'm huge on that. However, Mike's point is very, very well taken. There are violations that our own township people say that would close down if it was a private business. We have a stewardship responsibility right here. I don't want to close it down, but maybe what we have to do is say something to the commissioners that's saying, look, you got to get something done here. And maybe push the commissioners into the fact that Bob has already volunteered help and we're being ignored on this thing. Something has to be done, and maybe Mike's motion here is the force behind getting something done. We don't do it immediately, maybe we set a date of June 1st or June 30th. Whatever the case may be, I think it's time for us to do our stewardship duty and also waive any potential liability that we may have for not acting. And
May
do
I make a comment?
Please.
Well, first let me say that my comments are coming from a position where I really value Sulpizio and I want to see it stay open. But the frustration that we're all feeling is because you're right. There has been this period of indecision in the last 6 months, maybe even longer, a year, about what's going to happen, what we're going to do. And you're right. If this has not been a top priority in all the things that have been happening in this township, it hasn't. It has been down on the bottom of priorities. That doesn't mean it doesn't need to get done and get done now. And I think we all share the goal of trying to keep that building open. I think it would be immensely helpful from the Board of Commissioners' standpoint to get a very urgent recommendation, because I mean, that's who's got to make the decision, and that's who's got to say, we have to do this now, coming from this, and it should come from this board. And the sense of urgency is important, because we have so much going on in this township right now. Unless it's urgent, it's not going to get on the top of the list of things to do. So I mean, I would see a hybrid between Andy's idea and Mike's suggestion of potential of closing it, just to give it a sense of urgency. But I mean, you say the words "close Sulpizio" and it's on the front page of the paper and everyone gets hysterical. That maybe that's good, because that'll draw some attention to how urgent this is. But I think it's important we all understand nobody wants to close this building. It would be more helpful to have guidance as to what, by what point it will become unacceptable to this board, without saying we want to close this building. And recommend to the commissioners exactly what you'd like to see happen. And I think, I can't speak for my colleagues, but I think this is an important issue to all of us, and I would love to see your recommendation and your leadership in pushing this forward and pushing it up to us.
The other thing I wanted to mention was it's a fairly detailed list that the inspector went through, and the general comments about if this was a private business, they would be closed. I don't know the context of that statement. It can't apply to every single item. And there was a request of the inspector to prioritize them, or at least put them into a category of public health and safety as opposed to things that are needed, and he couldn't do it. He said, look, I just go by the codes, I interpret the codes, and that's what I do. So all I'm doing is what I would do for use and occupancy, or to turn on a new system.
We've asked for a prioritized
Right.
list of what absolutely has to be done tomorrow.
Right.
Or
And
yesterday.
you haven't had that,
No.
right?
No.
So I think you have a little bit of a balancing of, there's nobody that wants to take responsibility for evaluating the repairs. And if you had a business, the business would have either somebody on staff or somebody that they would hire that would say, what exactly do you mean? Which holes do you mean? And I'm going to close them with this foam. Is that going to work? They would negotiate, not negotiate as to what, but in terms of the solution, right? You know, if I replace the light bulb and it works, is that what you're talking about? You know, they would go back and forth, or at least they would say, we did it, come look at it again. They did that to my house. I put a new system in. They said, we can't turn it on until the inspector comes back. The inspector came and said there were penetration holes that weren't filled. So the guy came 2 days later, filled the holes. The inspector came the next day.
You're good.
And he said, you're good to go. So, I mean, some of this is, there's nobody on the side of Sulpizio managing it to that extent of saying, okay, this got fixed, is that right? This got fixed, is that right? What else do we have to do?
I guess, just to John, you're asking us to reach out to the community. We have. We have Bob, who has reached out to the township manager, and there's no feedback. So, you know, I'm okay making some type of an amendment to Mike's motion to put some type of a timeline in it, because Elaine, as you say, nobody up here wants to close Sulpizio. But the township inspection folks came to us 60 days, 90 days, whatever the days was, nothing's been done. And we have a responsibility to the people in this township. So,
Well, I like Elaine's suggestion, but I would add that just what Bob's talking about is what's missing, and that's the kind of thing you folks can be the driver on your facilities committee. They can be the driver on just those issues. What do we need to do here? Can we get someone else to do it? What's going to cost? Can the township do it? It doesn't have that sponsor.
I think that should come through staff.
The staff?
Staff's going to be more of an expert. I mean,
No.
I don't know what walls need to be filled or not filled, or can I fill it with a foam or not fill it with a foam, or, I mean, we're not experts in that area.
What Bob just said. You don't need to be the expert. You need to stand there with the guy that said this is
Yeah,
defective.
but we're not going to stand there, John. None of us are going to be able to stand there with the guy. That has to be staff.
I mean, one question I have is besides like the informal outreach of, you know, hey, I have a neighbor who's an electrician, I mentioned to him, hey, there's an issue. Is there any other channels through the township, and I don't know whether it's some kind of the e-newsletter or something. I mean, I don't know if we want to be putting up posters on the doors of Sulpizio Gym saying, hey, come in and play basketball, but if you happen to be an electrician, if you can come in and help us out on a Saturday afternoon, that'd be very helpful.
Give you an extra.
Yeah, you know, exactly.
Well,
Bring your tools.
but by the same
Yeah.
token, Andy, it would not hurt to put signs in Sulpizio for all the people who are using it, saying, we need your help.
Is that something that we can recommend?
Sure.
And that can be?
Absolutely.
Besides that, the physical signs, what other avenues through existing communication channels through the township are there? I mean, I guess that's something I don't have a good grasp on. I don't know if someone can answer that.
Could I just follow up a little bit with Andy? I have a feeling here it's a little like mercury on the desk up here. I'm trying to get a handle on it. It's very difficult to say to people, we need your help, but we don't know what it is.
Right.
What you need to do is for someone, and I think I have to go back to staff, facilities at the township, to put a list together of the tasks, very specifically, saying, well, it is an electrical exit light. We can take care of it. No, that's got to have to be something that's got to have to go out and contract. But until you get that list
which goes
of
back to
specific
prioritizing the list.
tasks, then we can go out and advertise the
Prioritizing the
tasks.
list.
Then we can go out and advertise whether it's putting signs in Salpizio saying, hey, all I need is some brawn here to paint a wall with some dry lock that we will get a hold of somewhere, somehow. We just need 3 hours of your time on a specific Saturday to come in and apply the dry lock according to whatever it is. We don't want people,
Specs.
yeah, you know. That's the kind of thing you need to do.
Could
Now,
it be a twofold motion that within 30 days, we would ask that a report is made to the board
Direction.
of direction of what can be done
Specific
and
tasks.
repaired within the township staff? And if they come back and they say
Turn your
absolutely
mic on.
nothing, then we know what that is. If we don't
Mic on.
have- If we don't have a report within 30 days, or any action items that are still open and not able to be repaired by the township after this report of 30 days, we would then have a 30-day period for outside solicitation. At the end of the 60-day period, if not all items are covered, we would make the recommendation to the board that they close Sapezio Gym until all repairs are made. I mean, does that seem to meet everybody's concerns?
I think you have to have some leeway in terms of having a plan, because if you don't have a plan and the resources to execute the plan, you don't want to say, well, we're at the 59th day, we got to get 20 people in here to fix this by tomorrow.
How about then just the initial 30 days for a
But
punch list?
but we're not taking an action. We have no authority here.
Right.
All we're doing is recommending to the Board of Commissioners to look at something. That's all they're going to do. They're going to take a small piece of paper, 2 paragraphs of what summarized here, and they're going to discuss it. So I agree with your sentiment, Andy. I don't think we need to fine-tune it. I also don't think that we, as a advisory volunteer board, should be requesting something that we've already requested and haven't gotten from a staff member of the township. We simply should be able to say, Tammy, would you please ask the appropriate people in code and inspections how, more specificity on these items to address them. We didn't get it when we requested it before. When we asked them to prioritize it, they said all the things had to be done. And to Bob's point, I found it laughable that it's somewhere in the code, there's something that say the showers need cleaning. I can't imagine that there is, but that was the attitude. So that we should come up with a resolution to require a township employee to provide us something really seems like a disconnect. I think what we do is we go with the emotion, we take your component of saying, let's put a date out in the future. Separate from that, we work with Tammy to work through the township.
I think we should also add, too, the fact that we're recommending that on such and such a date, if work is not done, it closes. But I think we should emphasize the fact that, and I believe we all feel this way, that we feel that Sulpizio is a vital asset to the community. We don't want to throw this comment out to those naysayers out there who would love to close Sulpizio tomorrow and have them jump on that. Okay, we want to make sure we stay positive on the whole facility. And we don't want to close it. What we're trying to do is force an issue here and get this thing done so we don't have a liability down the road.
If you want, I'll withdraw the motion and restate a motion that I think is capturing the sentiments that we're all supplying. Whereas the township has advised the Park and Rec Board of numerous code and safety violations for Sulpizio Gym, and whereas the board believes that Sulpizio Gym is an asset to the community, whereas the Park and Rec Board is obligated to advise the Board of Commissioners regarding facilities, the Park and Rec Board recommends the closing of Sulpizio Gym effective 90 days from this date or until such time as the needed repairs can be made to bring the facility into compliance with township code specifications.
I'd second that.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right. Motion passes. All righty.
Get the easy stuff now.
Next, under old business,
It's a, little electricians.
Radnor Memorial Park lease. I think we wanted to maybe address or talk about or get some discussion regarding public use of, excuse me, private use of public land. Anybody have any opening thoughts or comments regarding that with what project we are, I guess, looking at as a potential with regards to Radnor Memorial Park?
I think, or at least I remember, we've kicked this around before, and we were all in favor of the AI concept. And I don't know where we stand now that what the board has discussed that we may now have to readdress. Is there something else? Elaine, John, is there something new that came up with AI that maybe we should be addressing now?
No, I actually don't, I'm not sure why this is on. Do you know what it? I mean, the lease is still
Yeah, the
being
lease is still
negotiated.
in negotiations.
And on the 25th,
Right.
we will have the, I'm not going to say final because I don't want to, the most recent version of the lease will be in the packets before the 25th meeting, and then we'll be discussing it. We'll probably be introducing an ordinance relevant to that lease on the 25th and have a, I'm sure, very thorough debate about the merits of it. So that's where we are. Most, if not all, of the terms that were discussed at this board level are in that most recent version of the lease. So that's where we are.
Tom, I think it was more related to the last Board of Commissioners meeting, that it was somewhat of a fragmented discussion, and people got up to speak about the appropriateness of public land being used or being leased by a private institution.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very valid discussion point. I think on the merits of what Agnes Irwin has presented, I support the idea, but I think it's a very legitimate issue for township residents to voice an opinion on.
May I just add also that discussion is going to continue to be relevant as we move on to other facilities and discuss whether we want to have a long-term lease on the Willows Mansion, what we want to do with the lease at the Willows Cottage, what we want to do at the lease. I mean, we lease a lot of our property to private entities.
Yeah,
so this is a really relevant, not just to this lease. It's a bigger discussion.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to add that, a lot of folks may think that the township does not lease any other facilities or properties, but, you look at the Wayne Arts Center, the library, township building. So, I mean, there is certainly a precedent, and there's certainly grounds that, this is not new and something that is certainly familiar and has taken place in the past. So it's certainly not a stranger to the township.
We leased to St. Catherine's for football at Bo Connor, right? Is that a lease, or?
I don't think that's a
I don't think that's a lease. I think that's just usage.
Do we anticipate the need for our board to be part of this process, or is this now up, I guess, with the commissioners solely now at this point? Okay.
Up with the commissioners, but I would suggest or request, I guess, that when we do address it at the commissioners level, when we're introducing the ordinance, it would be helpful to have a representative from this board come and, present the recommendation that you made and the reasoning behind it. But as far as I'm concerned, you've already addressed it and made your recommendation, so.
And as soon as we have the final, what we think will be the final draft, we'll distribute it to you folks to take a look at. Because all our comments from that subcommittee meeting, the joint meeting we had with the Commissioners Committee and the Parks Board, they were all provided to John Rice.
John and Elaine, do you anticipate, some of the other commissioners had expressed a desire to have a waiver is probably not the right legal term, but certainly some sort of buy-in by the corporate center and the school district. Do you see that as a step that John Rice is pursuing?
I don't believe so. I think it's been his position that we do not need that. And
Well, I spoke to John Rice this morning, and he actually has a letter coming to him from the corporate center saying they have no
a
issues.
letter.
And I understand, I mean, we've heard from the superintendent, we've heard from the president of the school board that there's no issues for the school district.
And John, you can't speak for the school board,
I'm
because we
not.
had a discussion.
I said
we-
specifically who
Yeah,
I
no,
talked
the
to.
school board really has not made a statement
Right.
about that yet.
However, recognize, if you look at the tri-party lease, this particular part of the field, the way the tri-party lease is laid out, the school district's interest is where the school's located in the parking lot, not the field. So, but anyway, I don't see any of that being an issue, and we'll have all those ducks lined up before any action's taken.
To your point, Mike, I mean, there are definitely, some of our colleagues are, searching for their comfort. We're all soul searching. This is kind of new, partnering with a private entity and kind of thinking through the parameters of how this might work. I think some of those kind of bigger issues are heavy on the minds of some of our colleagues, and that's going to continue to be a discussion. And we're all being very thoughtful about how this private-public partnership thing works and how, how to make sure that we're protected and that we're getting our...
You made the point in the board meeting about it's a net gain in the total number of hours being utilized by township and school programs and community programs. And I think we agree with that. I think that's really where the rubber hits the road on this issue. And in the operating agreement, having a definition so it's more clear than the reference to, well, about 12 Saturdays is a little fuzzy, but looking at the schedules and being able to document that in the operating agreement, I think will go a long way to making people in the public feel comfortable with moving forward with Agnes Irwin.
Any other thoughts?
I just want to say the sports community continues to support the idea and the concept and moving forward. And we did state what some of the concerns were, and that hopefully those will be addressed. And the 12 Saturdays was one of the concerns. On the
Current version has 4 Saturdays, by the way.
Okay, thank you. The general question about a private school or private group or institution using public facilities or lease or use, I think there's just so many precedents of it being done here and elsewhere from public entities that I don't even understand why it's a question. Now, it is a formal lease. Most of the other uses are not formal long-term leases, but we're not asking people to invest money into the facilities either. If they pay anything, or if they have paid anything, it's a rental fee for a gym, it's a permit fee, it's something along those lines. So there was also some questions about taking away usage from the community, and so far I haven't found only the one instance that happened at the last commissioners meeting where the time that they're looking at using it would actually impact any other community users group. The other thing is that whether it's a public school, a private school, a private organization, one of the criteria should be, are they members of our community? And the school is located in the township, and as I had mentioned before, they give a lot back to the township in terms of using their facilities. And so I think the general issue about private use is, are we managing it well? Have we done it before? What's our success rate been before? We have one private school that uses many facilities for many, many years, at least 30 years, and we haven't had any problems. I mean, we have some conflicts on scheduling that we have to work out, but, you know, all in all, you know, it's sort of, you know, it works out. So, and that's over generations of different people involved.
Bob, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Do you have an opinion on the rent issue? It was raised at the Board of Commissioners meeting, and it's getting a lot of discussion. You referred to Agnes Irwin and the facilities they allow us to use. What's your thoughts on whether or not the agreement should have a rent stipulation?
I don't know. I go both ways on that, right? If you have a rent stipulation with a dollar value, then quid pro quo would be that we would have to give them offset for their allowing township programs to use their facility. Then now you get into a complicated formula, and it looks like more like the maintenance agreement with the school district. I don't know that it's worth that level of complication. We're not talking about the same level of involvement between the two entities. You know, it's not multiple locations. It's not, you know, it's just not the same level of involvement. So it's a matter of, are we getting, you know, a good arrangement, a good relationship, and how much do you think you need to formalize it? So if there's a lack of, if the crux of the matter is, you know, we need something financially, then say, okay, then can we work out this one detail of, you know, if we're going to give you this at this price, then what are you going to give us to offset that cost? Because otherwise, if we said, you know, we'd have to charge you $20,000 a year as a fair rental value, then they could say, okay, we want $20,000 from you guys, otherwise you can't use our facilities.
Well, Bob, with that in mind, would it be fair to ask them to promise, write down, or whatever, that they will continue to let us use their facilities?
Well, that's what I get into, whether you want to complicate this agreement with a good relationship when there's no other connections, right? So we've had a relationship for over 15 years, and now they want to basically protect their investment that they're putting into the facility is the reason to have a long-term lease. You know, if it was Agnes Irwin that does what they do, they already now use the field. And have for the last, you know, at least 7 or 8 years. On an every day, you know, week for a whole season, the whole spring season, they already do it. They already permit a field now. So we don't ask them for, you know, I mean, it's that kind of thing. So, you know, and we do it for some other schools. So it's just not, you know, it's kind of like if that was the only stumbling block, then you say, okay, let's, you know, see if we can make that happen, even though in the context of the relationship, it doesn't necessarily require it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other thoughts? I guess the last item that we've got is the Radnor High School came before the Board of Commissioners and had a petition regarding trying to find them some space. I know there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of talk about the folks with from the high school using Radnor Memorial and/or not being able to gain some access from the school as far as space. I just maybe get some thoughts as to maybe what folks are thinking, and you know, as far as the usage of the Radnor Memorial and where we can possibly go with them for next year.
I think this just gets back down to our Fields Committee and the fact that we've been hurting, and we've been trying to say for years we don't have enough fields in the township. And this is one more entity coming through with a great program, and a bunch of kids are really interested in something, and we don't have a place to put them.
There are kids, and they're Radnor Township kids, and there are school kids, and they don't have a place to play, and they are getting short shrift. They're kids who do not live in this township who are getting field space.
By
and
whom,
our
though?
kids
Who are they
aren't.
getting shortchanged by?
Well, St. Catherine's gets to play on the field.
That's not my question.
Agnes Irwin gets to play
My
on our
question
fields.
is, who,
Well, Agnes Irwin doesn't have all the kids that are in Agnes Irwin do not live in this township. All
Probably
the
have a
kids who
good
are in
portion
St.
of them,
Yes, but
as
all
does
the
St.
kids that want to
Catherine's.
play, that play Alderman
Right.
Frisbee live in Radnor Township, and they're the people that should get first dibs on the fields, in my opinion.
Brucey, who in your opinion is, or should be handling the scheduling of the Ultimate Frisbee Club as far as a place to play?
Well, I think it's between the school district and the township.
Well, if it's a
You know,
school
that's not-
activity, shouldn't it first fall on the school district?
That doesn't always happen, though. The school and the township
But
seem
isn't
to
that
work
where it should
together.
first lay? I mean,
Maybe.
this
I don't
year,
know. I'm not the one who's making the schedules, but I do know that those kids should have a place to play and should be given priority.
Could just interrupt. I want to just make everyone aware that the high school administration is literally doing backflips to accommodate this team. They are incredibly supportive. They have made the commitment to the team that they will find them field space next year. They will put them in the rotation for all, as all the other teams are, for the Radnor High School space if nothing else comes up. But they're also talking to some other schools and private schools in our community that may be able to provide them permanent space. So they have stepped up to the plate, our high school administration. They are working so hard to make this happen, and they've given the Ultimate Club the commitment that they will have a field next year. So it's pretty settled that they're going to have a home next year, and they will be at Memorial through their season this year.
correct. And thank you to Leah and Tammy for making the provision that they're able to use Radnor Memorial this year, because I think it's great, and I think it's a great program. So, any public participation?
Bob, if you're going to move your chair up here.
I got to see what happens first. I think there's space. I talked to Tammy about this, and I think it's a matter of just working the schedule in the fields, and I think I mean, sometimes a group comes and they want a certain space because of where it is or how it's laid out, and they don't like the alternatives. But I think there are alternatives that could fall into them. I guess my concern was if they're a school function, then that should be clear that they are a school function and that they have the full support of the school, and that it's not a parent who then that's sort of representing them without the backing of the school. So if it's a club that started in a school that the school's not supporting, then that's a whole different game. But
The
it sounds
school
like
is supporting
it
them.
sounds like the school is supporting them as a bona fide activity and whatever requirements they have of those activities, including insurance. Then fine, the request should come, at least perfunctory, at least come from the administrator at that school and say, we're requesting, see what you can do. This is what they need, this is what they want, what can you offer them? So I think there are a variety of locations. They may not be absolutely perfect, but I think there are a variety of locations that could be looked at, depending on, my sense is of the space they need is that there are certain areas at the high school, but are probably too close to the woods, too close to the stands, too close to this and that and the other thing. But there are probably some other areas that they could use in the township. And we've done this with the middle school.
Is this any
How do we
different
get
than
through
like
all
the-
those years at the middle school with the middle school teams having to use fields? Now they're at the middle school, so there should be space available.
Is this type of club any different than like the middle school squash club? Do you know?
I don't know I guess if it's a school club, that you have to be careful, because sometimes it is not, it's something that the parents or another group has put together. So.
Right, that's what I'm asking. I mean, like the squash.
This is totally backed by the school. This is, yeah.
Okay.
And I assume it's a spring sport, Frisbee?
It's actually fall and spring, I think they play. But, yeah, I think they play in the fall.
It is fall and spring.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fall
it's-
and spring?
It's fall and
Fall
spring.
and
Fall
spring.
and spring.
Are there any other clubs that are both fall and spring like that?
Are there any other sports that are fall
Yeah,
and spring?
I mean, but, I mean,
Soccer's fall and, there's a spring soccer league.
Well,
And there's,
but
no,
not,
you mean from the
not
high
the-
school?
not the high school sport.
Yeah, not that I don't know. I don't think so.
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, well, what about tennis?
I think
it
I think the males play in one
Right,
season and then the females play in the other, kind of like lacrosse
Tennis is
and
both seasons,
soccer.
but different sexes.
Actually, it's not soccer, but lacrosse.
Yes, sir.
I know you've heard all the issues. I'm Jim Schneller. I live in St. David's Park. In fact, I live within half a mile. But besides my personal reservations, I wanted to point out that when this high school issue was presented, a glaring fact became evident that their proximity is within a quarter mile of the field. So these were Radnor residents, Radnor school children, and they were noticeably being slighted. And it was just really prevalent, and it kind of showed that that aspect is here. And it has showed in certain people's feelings about the board's activities, which I wish you wouldn't encourage in any way, because they in fact told the Frisbee players, we'll guarantee it through May, but then we will find a place. Well, why shouldn't they have some priority? Why didn't the commissioners say, we'll keep you in the mix? And also, as far as private...
Shouldn't that come from the school board or from the school district, if it's a school activity?
Well, they haven't had a formal placement with the school fields. I think there's physical reasons because it's Frisbees. Maybe it just happened that way. But that was the foundational situation. And then with the lease itself, I wanted to implore you to take a second look at this. I wouldn't stand up except that there will be hopefully a member of you at the hearing or whatever situation happens at the board, because there is a small section of the park, they called it the basin. They were downplaying the significance, but it is a 100 square feet or 200 square foot portion kind of opposite the restrooms. And it's parkland. And the commission has been told so far that it's, a water basin. And this is the first situation I've ever seen where the parkland could be feasibly paved or get a structure. I said to the board in simple terms, put into the lease that they cannot build. Every team in the world can buy a large trailer and put all the soccer equipment for the team on a trailer.
Isn't that part of the tri-party? So that's irrelevant.
What?
Being able to build a structure on that.
Well, the lease has further improvements, including parking lot or something resembling structures at the discretion or with the approval of the board.
So it would have to come before the board for approval.
Right. Well, the board, I don't think is a good enough threshold. That's why I brought it up. You're the Parks Department. How about getting in there and defending every square inch of parkland? We know that that's just as valuable. It's just as sought after a commodity. And after all, I mean, we don't want them. Has anyone ever paved parkland in Radnor? Not to my knowledge. For private use? When it gets to the private use back and forth, it seems problematic to me because it could set precedent.
Or I think we're talking about a portion of private use, or of an outside agency being able to use it, but it will certainly still stay open.
I don't, and by the way, there's a walking path on it.
Which will stay.
And, how do we know?
It's in the lease.
That is
Yeah, but the board will be implored with pleas of parking. I can just see the SEPTA people in here and ABC.
There's a process for that.
Yeah, that would go before the design review and what have you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.